Good evening. Our apologies for a delay in starting the meeting. The Meet and Discuss Voting Board meeting of the Ambridge Area School District is held on Wednesday, September 8th, 2021. This meeting is being held to take action that has come before the board. All meetings have been advertised to permit legislative action as necessary. Please rise for the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is being recorded for district purposes. It is or may be published in part or in its entirety on the district's website without the express permission of meeting participants. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Angus?
Here.
Mr. Campbell?
Here.
Mrs. Curtis?
Here.
Mrs. Kehoe?
Here.
Dr. Manganello?
Here.
Mr. Metz?
Here.
Ms. Pettigo? Ms. Young?
Here.
Mrs. Fisher?
Here.
8 present.
Excuse me, Mrs. Mueller, were you able to call in Ms. Pettigo?
Yes, because we will not be able to attend the meeting by phone.
Okay, thank you. Moving forward to the amendments to the agenda, approval of the agenda. Solicitor Turnbull.
So first we'll note that an executive session was not held, which is why we're skipping over that item. In terms of amendments to the agenda, it's my recommendation that the board consider tabling items under education and technology, items 2 through 6, until later this evening during the reconvened recessed meeting of this voting session.
There's 7. Jim, is there 7 or 6?
I would say this is one.
And I believe that's correct.
Okay.
So I'd recommend a motion to table those items until we're able to reconvene later this evening.
I move. Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Camplong. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Moving forward to recognition and presentation. Presentation by principals, field trips, and specials. Dr. Pasquarello, do you want to give a brief on that, or are you just going to let them go into?
Thank you. Yes, last month you had indicated that we would like our principals to be able to come in and speak a little bit more about field trips and specials in the building. And we said we'd take a look until our September meeting. So I know that they've gotten together to be able to present to you for some things to consider. So I'll turn the floor over to them.
Okay, good evening. So the elementary principals would like to make a couple proposals as far as procedures regarding COVID at the elementary level. And I believe the board has a handout of this as well. So for the specials classes, students will remain in their home room. For their specials classes and the special area teachers will teach students from the students' homeroom classroom. Hold on one second. Hang on.
Yeah.
I have a handout.
Is it
Yeah.
down there?
After the meeting, or run down and get it now. Someone run down and get it. What? Or I can send it after.
Yes. Can you get it, please? You could go ahead and start.
Okay, I apologize.
Repeat that second part, Mr. McKelvey. I'm sorry. I heard specials in the homeroom, in the classroom.
So students will remain in their homeroom for their specials classes, and the special area teachers will teach students from the students' homeroom classroom. That is what's currently being done as well. For cross-grouping, particularly with the focus classes at the elementary level, teachers will be able to cross-group students with other students from their respective grade level for academic purposes. Teachers will keep a seating chart for any cross-grouping activities for contact tracing purposes. Field trips. Students will follow the district policy on masking and social distancing while on all field trips. If the hosting venue for the field trip has more stringent COVID procedures in place than that of the district, then students, staff, and chaperones attending the field trip would abide by the COVID procedures in place at the given venue. Any assemblies, any student assemblies would be conducted virtually. And we have on here that open houses would be conducted in person or virtually, which are currently scheduled for in person.
Would you repeat that, Mr. McKelvey? That
Yeah.
last part on open house.
So open houses are currently scheduled for in-person open houses, but we have on here that they will be conducted in person or virtually.
So that was more of a question for the board that we wanted you to consider during, right now they're still in person. If we want to continue in person, that would be the way we would do it. But that was just one question or concern. I think the other things that they mentioned, just to recap, and you'll be getting a sheet, if I heard that correctly, and I have it in front of me, is that all assemblies for the most part would be done virtually right now, so we're not bringing everyone into a large group setting. And on field trips, they kind of said that no matter where they would go, they would follow our social distancing and our COVID protocols. And if the place that they were going to had even more stringent, we would obviously have to comply with that. And then cross grouping, we talked a little bit about that, whether that, they talked about teachers will be able to cross group students with other students from their respective grade level for academic purposes. In other words, for focus period, what they're saying is within that grade level. Instead of right now, we said we'd start the year out of focus period where they would just send the focus teacher into the given classroom and rotate. They're talking about doing grouping as it was intended, going and taking maybe 5 students from this homeroom, 5 students from this homeroom to go with the focus teacher, while keeping a seating chart on that in case we have to do that for contact tracing. So we'd have to have that if necessary. I mean, some things have changed since then, and we're going to probably talk about that at some point tonight. And then they were saying that special classes, students will remain in their homeroom for their specials, and the special area teachers will still continue to teach the students in their homeroom classroom right now. That was what they came up with.
Can we elaborate on that? That was one of the reasons. I know I was one of the people that asked for this presentation, so I want to thank you guys for coming. But can you elaborate on the specials and why we're keeping them in homerooms and not in the special classrooms that have all the equipment and the exposure and everything else that our little ones missed out on already for a year and a half? But we're cross grouping. So I'd really like to understand.
Sure. Yeah, so we discussed that one actually at length because the main reason behind the intent behind that one was that the gymnasiums are being used for some of the furniture that had to be removed from the classrooms. So the gymnasiums in the buildings are being currently used for storage of that furniture.
So because we are storing furniture, we can't have phys ed class?
Also, I think in one of the buildings in particular in Economy, I know we're using that to space out for lunch. But it's clearly up to you if you want to.
I mean, are State and Highland, are you storing furniture in the gyms? Because I know at Highland there's like a room downstairs. Well, from what I recall, it's been quite a few years, but
Sure.
I don't know about State as far as if there's.
Yeah, State Street does have their furniture out in the gym, but we're also looking at, if that was to use the special room, also like someone, if we need to clean the classroom, or whatever the reason, then it is in there, or they can thorough instruction on the class.
So would we be able to use, maybe the cafeteria or gym? I know bleachers as far as I know, like I said, I'm speaking about Highland. I apologize for that, but I'm not as familiar with State. I have been in Economies. I know there's bleachers there. I mean, to get the kids back in physical education, could you guys come up with, that's my opinion. I'm not speaking for anybody else.
Well, could we store furniture in one of our empty buildings that we're paying for? Or look at different options, like for our children. I think I am very strong on this, if you can't tell, that our kids need specials, and they need them in the specials room with the equipment that the teachers need to perform what they need for our little ones. I don't know how we can keep, this pandemic could go on the rest of our kids' career. So I don't know how we could not provide them STEAM, not provide them phys ed. Standing and doing squats at their desk while Miss Parisi, I can tell, I mean, my kids love her and they still think that she's doing a fabulous job. But they need to get up and move and do different things. They need to be active. We have a small window of elementary for these kids, and they need their full education. That's why we keep specials in schools.
I just think that, in general, that's fine. If 5 board members feel that way, I know that they thought about this. They've cited a couple reasons why. I think what I want to make sure is clear. I don't think whether it's the principals or myself or anyone in administration, we don't want phys ed or art not to take place in their rooms. I think they're just trying to simply explain that if we do that, it does present some other issues. If that's the direction of the board, then that's what we will do. I mean, I think they're just, no one's being trying to be defiant or not do what you wish to do. If that's what you want us to do, that's what we'll do. Understanding that in some cases, as an example, we could try to spread kids out the best we can, but if they're using the gym, for example, to spread out to eat lunch, the cafeteria and the other areas around there will be as creative as possible, but it might be a little bit more crowded so that we understand that. We understand that, you're saying move the equipment out and open those rooms up. That's fair, and that's a fair statement. That's something we can consider working on as soon as possible. The only thing I would say there is, as they were trying to mention, some buildings have extra rooms and it's very easy to move. Other buildings are pretty tight. So when you have to spray a room, per our plan, where are they going to go? You say cafeteria as an example, but if the cafeteria is in use when that happens, then you really don't have the cafeteria to take them to. So it does present some problems. But that's fine. I think we got that loud and clear, that you'd like to see specials back in the room. So
I'm only one person, so I'm not speaking on behalf
And
of
you
everyone.
got principals, please speak up if you think that in your building, your specific building, if you're thinking that may not work, and, could you tell us why you think that might not? At Economy, are you using the gym for extra cafeteria, for cafeteria?
Currently, I'm using the gym for extra cafeteria space, but I also had worked on a plan to condense them into the cafeteria. It will be a little crowded. I might have to move some tables out into the hall, but it's feasible.
Do you have a curtain? I'm thinking of Highland because I know we have a curtain there, but do you have a curtain there too where you could
I
split
do
the
have
gym?
a curtain. That's another option. Maybe we can split the gym
Yes,
and have half the class, have it half for phys ed and the other half for the cafeteria.
right. It's better.
That would still keep kids safe, and I think it would be a
Sure.
good idea.
And even if we have a class to clean, maybe Dr. Pascarella, those bleachers, there's a lot of bleacher space at Highland and Economy, I know. Again, State, I apologize that I'm not as
State Street's
No
the one
bleachers.
that obviously is the tightest as far as having available rooms to move people to.
okay.
So when you have that issue, we will do as creative and be as creative as we possibly can and spray as fast as you can. And you have to let everything settle before you move them back in there and those types of things. But just as long as we're all on the same page on that, that's fine. I just don't want them to be put out that they were trying to do this because they don't want specials in the
No,
No, I don't think any of us
And
thought
we
that.
appreciate your hard work in trying to bring us something to share with the public so we can show that we're, trying to get back to some sort of normalcy for the kids.
And I think parents would be okay if you would have to spray or move a classroom that, okay, that day that special isn't occurring, but it's not an everyday occurrence that we aren't even trying to get them in the room. So, I think I would pray that everyone in our community is flexible and willing. And I don't want you to think that my passion on specials in the classroom is anything against the hard work and dedication that all of you are providing during this pandemic.
So
Do you
we're gonna-
guys? Oh, go ahead.
So to be clear, unless in an emergency situation, if that happens, then they would have the special in their room if necessary. But otherwise, I think it's pretty clear, unless somebody says differently, that you want specials in the room.
And I want to be clear, just from a board standpoint, that if there are emergencies or situations where you can't, that discretion is left up to the superintendent and the principals to make the right decision, correct decision for the safety of the kids. And if a special doesn't occur that day, just that we communicate, we can communicate to the parents, but we leave that, at least my opinion, if everybody's in agreement, leave that discretion up to.
We don't
to-
take that with
no.
the parents.
Okay.
Right?
So if Dr.
It's not going to
Pat,
happen all the time.
and it can happen, you know,
So,
we don't know.
Right. I
we
mean,
don't
but
know.
at this point, what we're saying is, though, it's not going to happen all the time.
Right. We'll do our
We
best to
push
get,
out enough phone calls as it is to say, hey, listen, we have to hold this inside the home instead of sending them down there. I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to be communicated either on a daily
Yeah, I
basis.
think that these guys are capable, more than capable of making.
Yes,
those
they are.
decisions, but we just need to understand, you know, that we're looking for them to move around as much as we can, as much, you know what I mean, as much as we can get them to go into those rooms and, you know, do their work there.
Then the next one was focus periods, basically doing some cross grouping and keeping seating charts for who goes in there. They're willing to do that to allow for that flexible grouping. Everyone's okay with that?
Thank you.
And then it seems like field trips, we're saying we're going to go on the field trips and follow all of our protocols, masking and such, and trying to social distance the best that we possibly can. And if any venue has more stringent COVID procedures, then we would follow those. Everyone's good with them going? These are, so far, these are only, for the most part, they're day trips. Is that
And I think on that, Dr. Pasquarella, obviously, if the pandemic gets worse or different things, and a field trip needs to be canceled, like they have the ability, again, not to have to come to us for those decisions, but to make that administrative decision as to what's best for our children.
And then assemblies right now, just basically they're saying they would be conducted virtually, or, you know, one person may come into one classroom or such like that. In other words, we're not going to do, you know, more of what we've been used to before, where you have everyone come to the gymnasium at one time. That probably would not be wise right now. I agree with them on that myself. But so it would be virtually, or I think we would add a line that maybe said, you know, one presenter or so for a smaller group. Does anyone think otherwise, and we should have it in large groups? And then everyone is still okay, and we just brought it up because I didn't want to forget, and there will be questions as things come up, so we wanted to make sure. I mean, our plan right now is that open houses will be still conducted in person, and I just told them to add that myself, just so that we're all clear here in the public as they would be coming, that that's still how you would like us to have those, correct?
I think we should, my opinion again, I'm sorry, I think we should limit it to parent or guardian and not grandparents and aunts and uncles and everyone else. We need to also protect our teachers
also,
from a higher number of people.
are we holding book fairs, or has
That was a yes, you said that last time.
are they scheduled, or we? Okay.
But the reason why I'm bringing this up is I think there's my own opinion, and this is kind of my suggestion that they add it to their sheet, because I wanted this to be a discussion that you said yes to. And the reason why is that is a large amount of people, way more than just maybe a couple parents helping out with the book fair and kids go. I mean, you're talking about the whole school coming in one spot. I'm not saying you should do anything different. I'm just making sure that we had the discussion. That's all.
And as you have that in person or virtually, we're just leave that up to each building to decide if they're due in person or
think,
virtually, or we're doing both options.
No, what I meant by that is, when I asked that, is right now it's in person. Unless you say otherwise, it's going to be in person.
And we're talking usually, is it K through 2? K through, what's do you do it differently at each building, or pre-K through?
It's one day.
You do it all in one day?
We do it all in one day since they moved out to 6th grade from the elementary buildings. We used to break it up, but
this is years ago, you know, my kids
Right.
and it used to be split up. I mean, I don't know if that's an option to say to not put as many people in the building. I don't.
I think
I'll leave it up
still
to
a
them.
ton of people in the buildings because so many people bring their entire family to meet everyone. I mean, it is not just the parents, and I can only speak of economy because that's where I am with my children right now, but it's super crowded. and there's tons of people. And that's why I think we either limit who can attend or we do it virtually and protect our teachers.
What do you guys, as the principals, give
I
us?
think it should only be immediate family in the house. If there's
Give us
siblings,
some
they should
feedback.
be allowed to go with parents.
Go ahead, guys. Sorry.
Well, I think if we put something.
Yeah,
out-
I was just asking the principals if they had opinion. No, I wanted you to give yours, and then we'll see what they.
No, if we could send something out and say that, for current conditions, we want to limit the crowd.
Okay.
And just have the parents and younger siblings.
Okay.
My reason for bringing it up in all districts, when you think about open house and you show up and you go into that room and you're trying to give them a wave and tell them it's nice, the room's packed.
Yeah.
It's totally packed everywhere I've ever been. I'm just being truthful. So that's why I brought it up. As long as I'm not trying to make a debate out of it or anything or ask you to do anything, but I want to make sure that we had the discussion and you're good with that because they're going to come up and that's fine. If the direction is to try to just stick with parent and guardians, we could, if that's what you want us to do, that's what we can do. That's fine. I just wanted to make sure.
Anybody object it?
We're going to have
Anybody
to,
object that?
are we going to do the same thing K-12? Because secondary, then you're talking,
Let Janice give a little feedback.
Double
Just
the
said we were
people.
going to send the same letter. Janice just said she wanted to send the same letter that
Same
we were
one.
going to send.
so you're talking those teachers then being exposed to 100 and some different families, because it's not like an elementary where you have 27 to 29. You're
That's why we're gonna let Janice speak on what she wants to do.
Go ahead, Ms. Simpson.
I know, but she can still, I mean, I know, but we.
Generally, the way we run our open houses is we have the parents follow the student schedule. So you would have usually a smaller manageable group of people in a classroom for approximately 10 or 11 minutes to meet the teacher. The teacher shares some things about themselves in the class, and then they rotate to the next class period. So it's generally a smaller group and for a shorter period of time than a student would even be in a classroom.
I just brought it up basically again, not to reiterate, just because of the numbers are rising. You're talking about a lot of people in a small area at one time. So you guys kind of know what I'm at.
Everybody okay with that, or you have other
We're
questions?
going to go in person.
No other question?
In person, and their letter will say to try to limit guests to parent and guardians.
Okay.
So, but I
Anything
think
else, sir? Oh, I'm
But
sorry,
for
Ms.
me-
Young. Go ahead. Go ahead.
for Janice, I agree. I've done, since I do the high school now, just high school only. I think I agree. I do for high school. I think what you're doing is perfect. But if we could just limit just high school, just the students, just the parents only, I think that would be phenomenal. We don't need siblings. I don't think siblings should be coming.
What if you have younger children, though?
I mean, small. I honestly, well, I understand it. Like little ones. I mean, they have to come. I understand that parents can't. You don't have anyone to watch them, and it makes. I apologize, but right now with the rise of COVID, it makes it more difficult. But with the high school, I have little kids. I understand it. I've had little kids, and it makes it difficult. And sometimes you have to find someone that can keep them. And what do you want to do with them? What do you have to do with them? I had to find someone to watch them. And I'm sorry, it doesn't make it any easier. Being a single parent, I had to do what I had to do. But you have to get around and you have to make a way. You have to figure it out. But when you have to get from one class to the next with what's going on right now, I don't think we should have all the people in this building with the way things are going, putting them at risk or putting the teachers or the other people in this building at risk, or even yourself or your child. I think we should limit to just parents and the teachers.
I think we should go virtually. Make it simple.
My only concern there is if we do for elementary and we're allowing siblings to go there and we don't do that for the older children. I personally don't want anybody to feel disgruntled or
I understand it.
They're a single parent or whatever and they can't bring their younger one. And anybody else could jump in here. That's just my personal opinion.
I do understand that. I do. I just think it's just more difficult because the high school, we get bombarded with these calls, and we're getting numerous calls for Amber High School, and I'd be terrified to bring my small child in Amber Jerry High School and something happens.
What, has anyone talked to our teacher union about it? I know, like, throughout the area, they have their rights and they represent our kids, and our teachers do a fabulous job. So the giggling in the comments on our teachers isn't appreciated. But our teacher union and different groups in the surrounding areas have really been pushing even for virtual open houses recently, because one, with the younger kids, they're not vaccinated. So you're bringing unvaccinated kids near teachers that could get it. And then you have too many people in the building, different things like that.
We also have children, that aren't vaccinated in the high school too, that they're around. And I'm
Correct.
not debating. I'm not debating. I'm just saying that they're also around, high school students as well that aren't, and I'm not trying to debate. I just want us to come to some sort of resolution that's fair for everybody and everybody feels that they're.
Did the union have any concerns?
I
That was my
To
question.
be honest, I did not speak with the teachers union. This is my own personal concern. I think, I've said that before. I'm kind of conservative when it comes to safety. The numbers are growing. I did not specifically actually have time to speak with her, but that's why I wanted to make sure that at least you heard from where I was coming from that, putting that number of people in there is an issue. But I've said that. I did not speak with her to ask Ms. Wilson her opinion.
Anybody else on the board have any?
I think it should be by household.
Anybody else?
So it'll be parent and guardians and household siblings. So right?
Are we all in agreement or?
Will it also be or virtually if a parent doesn't feel comfortable coming in?
I don't know.
No,
That would be a
a
union
union
trying
issue.
to do
Household
that,
is fine.
trying to get it.
Okay.
I would say that would be difficult for them, and I didn't talk to them about
I
that.
just wanted to understand.
Janice, I'm sorry to put you on the spot again, but because you've been doing this for years, could you give us a little feedback if you think virtual might not be something they would want, but they would, would rather limit the amount of people and come?
So I do agree that it does limit interaction socially. As a personal belief, I do believe that it's nice for people to get to know each other. And I would prefer to do that on a limited basis rather than a large-scale basis. For me personally, I would rather the teachers get to meet the parents. That's at the end of the day who we need to make decisions with for the needs of the children. And I know that it's very nice to bring aunts, uncles, grandmothers, and such, and they're an important part of the picture. But I think limiting the association and an open house to a parent or guardian in a face-to-face setting, it's just nice to see people and introduce yourselves. But if we get to the point where we need to do things virtually for safety, I think we need to use that as an option, even if it's at the 11th hour.
When is high school open house scheduled?
September 22nd.
So parent, guardians, and household members trying to limit the amount is what the letter will say in a much more fluid way. Is that what we're agreeing to?
Anybody not in favor of that?
Janice, did you want to go over, Ms. Zubzik, excuse me,
Yes,
did
I
you want to
can
go
share
over?
mine briefly. So secondary and elementary work very closely to align ourselves because we do want to be consistent across the district. So my field trips, students would follow the district's masking and social distancing policy while on trips. If the hosting venue has more stringent procedures, we would follow those. All student assemblies are being conducted virtually. And when possible, we're seeing if we can bring a presenter in that's willing to stay for an entire day to circulate to the small group classrooms, than for us to bring in a presenter for an hour and bring all the students to one common place. So that allows them to have individual meetings instead of large group assemblies. And it would be the same for a field trip. Maybe instead of going to visit a location, if it's appropriate, a representative could come to us.
So for assemblies, it's similar, again, that they would be doing them virtually, and if not, that they would be trying to get presenters to come in smaller group settings rather than putting everyone in the gym. So that would be similar. We're okay with that? And then the other one, the only question I think a little bit more on field trips, it's exactly basically the same as the elementary, saying we'll follow our own COVID protocols, right? And then if they're more stringent, we would do that. The only question I have for that, and I know there's going to be a couple examples, maybe if a parent decides to take their child to compete themselves or to participate in something themselves overnight, I think we'd be okay with that because that was the parent's decision to allow them to do that. But as far as whole group, and you don't have to make this decision tonight, I'm not asking you to, but that's the only thing else I think we have a question. People are going to start to ask to plan for overnight type events and field trips. So if you don't want to answer that one tonight, it's really not on there, but I think it's something that probably Ms. Zupsik, people are going to start to ask you for planning for, the spring and such.
What I've currently been having the staff doing is if they want to go on a field trip, we've been reviewing.
Come a little closer, Janice. Ms. Zupsik, I'm sorry.
What we've been doing is I've been reviewing with my staff before they submit the official request to make sure that all the things that we would have concerns about would be in place.
Are you, for now, unless you want to say that they could go ahead at this given point and just start to schedule overnights, that's fine. And pending, obviously, if COVID got worse, is that where we're at?
Yep.
Anyone not there? So, Ms. Zupsik, you could start to schedule even the overnight ones with the idea that they understand if COVID did get in a position where we'd have to reconsider that, that's still a possibility. But right now, day trips and overnight trips would be allowed.
Thank you. I'll take that back to the staff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you
very
guys have
much.
anything else? No. Okay. Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you.
Solicitor Turnbull, before we move forward to public comment, can I ask you to speak upon the state mandate, please? I apologize for putting you on the spot, but
No, it's, as you can imagine, it's a topic that a lot of people all throughout school communities are very much talking about, particularly schools that had previously exercised, local control in a variety of ways, but places like Ambridge, who had made masks optional as we started the school year, and certainly last week kind of threw a monkey wrench into that concept. I think as we've gone through COVID-19 and this pandemic, I think one of the hallmarks has consistently been the need to be able to change on a moment's notice, or in this case, it was several days' notice. So the Department of Health issued an order last Tuesday, August 31st, that went into effect yesterday, requiring that all school entities, whether they're public schools or private schools throughout the Commonwealth, everyone in an indoor school building was required to mask. I know that people, have some questions about what that means. Is it a statute? No, but it's an order that is derived from the health department's legal authority under a statute, which is what gives it the force of law. Now, certainly, if the landscape changes, and that landscape can change at any moment's notice, whether that is a lawsuit and a case, not specifically. There's one that's already filed by parents in the Butler Area School District in the Commonwealth Court as of late last week, directed against the Department of Health. There's an oral argument scheduled on that right now, I believe on the 16th next week. So I do anticipate that there will be more clarity that is brought either by that or other things. And certainly we turn to our state elected officials, and to the extent that people are looking for relief, legislation would certainly trump what we have right now as an order. But our backdrop And I will say that my legal advice is that in your plan right now is to follow the law, whatever the law is at any given time. And so it's my recommendation we do this. And then there are components of the law that relate to exemptions. And yesterday and even in the days prior, here at Ambridge, we've been working through those requests for exemptions. We're doing it with all speed that we can, and we'll continue to do that. So, that is our holding pattern, and I think the upside, if there is one, or the hope is that because of the way that the CDC currently has close contacts defined, there is a carve out for students, not for teachers, but for students in a K-12 building. If everyone, including the sixth student, is masked and they are within 3 to 6 feet, they're not considered close contacts. And so I do think that the one thing inside of our office, because we represented a great number of school districts kind of in the Western Pennsylvania region, I think that anecdotally we can see that there's a marked difference between the number of students being quarantined in schools that are completely masked with appropriate exceptions versus others that started the year kind of in a different way. That's always circumstantial. I mean, we're in high transmission right now, at least by CDC standards, and I think the states in Beaver County. So these are fluid things. There could be a point in time where the community transmission is lower. And if we're still at that point, we might be having different conversations about really exerting our rights or our challenges. But at this point, the fact that there are active challenges happening out there is my advice that we sit tight to the extent that you feel comfortable doing so, and waiting to see how those play out. And then we'll be really nimble and flexible when the moment comes, and make the appropriate changes as we've done all throughout.
And just to clarify, our health and safety plan that we submitted did include that we would be in agreement that we would follow the mandates if presented.
Yeah, and that was back in June. I mean, that was before we had the crystal ball to know where we would end up. But that just is where we are at this moment.
All right.
Yeah, just a couple. Were you looking at me?
Can you clarify?
Go ahead, Dr.
To
Pasquale.
make a couple comments?
Yes, please.
A couple comments that I would like to make in regards to that. One is to coincide with what the solicitor is saying. I do agree from our reading as of today that it does say, you spoke about if both folks are wearing masks, that we wouldn't have to quarantine. I will tell you, though, that this guidance has changed often. So I just want to make sure that when everyone hears that, they understand that there's a possibility that would change, and we don't always make those decisions. In other words, there might have been a time where they had said that if you were vaccinated, you wouldn't need the mask, and now you do. So my only thing I want to make sure that I'm clear on is those are the rules right now, which would limit quarantining, in particular every area other than when you're eating lunch without a mask. And it also talks about sports activities that you would be allowed to be unmasked, and it also talks for high-level energy type things such as physical education and such. So if students don't have masks on, we would have to look to quarantine there. I do agree it would limit it, but I also want to make sure that it's on the record, for lack of a better word, that things do change, and those are sometimes outside of our control that we have to deal with. So I wanted to make sure that I stated that. I
agree. I think that's wise to make that.
Just because I know as parents you would say, well, I attended this meeting and I heard that, and what changed? And sometimes it doesn't even change. It changes in between board meetings. So, I mean, we have to follow what is stated there from where I sit. The other thing I would like to address is it was brought to my attention that there was an article in the Beaver County Times stating the fact that, to quote them, not myself, we're in the crosshairs for not submitting our health and safety plan. That's of grave concern, so I wanted to address that. We emailed, myself and Mr. King emailed the state to ask what they were talking about in the Beaver County Times. The state had no idea. Today I spoke with a gentleman by the name of Kenneth Krawchuk from the Pennsylvania Department of Education. I asked him to put it into writing so that I would have this in front of me. And he says, "Good afternoon, Dr. Pasquarella. Per our conversation, I'm able to verify that the requested health and safety plan was uploaded to PDE's e-grant system on July 16th, 2021, as indicated below." And it's a picture of when it was submitted down to the timestamp. It also shows that we've submitted our URL, which is our website link to our safety plan, on 7/29/21, and it shows that timestamp as well. So I just want to make sure that it's very clear to everybody that we did submit everything that we were supposed to in the given time, and that was inaccurate. As far as me not responding, they called once, to the best of my knowledge, and left a message at the end of the day on Friday, which my secretary in my office, Ms. Mueller, didn't get to because they called so late. So that's why we weren't able to respond. But I do want to clarify for those of you in attendance and for our public and the Board of Education that we've done everything that we were supposed to do. So I just want to make sure that that was clear. Thank you for allowing me to say that.
And that phone call came in, relatively close to 3 o'clock, and you're running an article on a Sunday. And in my opinion, as a parent before a board member, that's not a significant amount of time to allow a superintendent or anybody else in the district to give a response to that. So we just wanted to clarify for everybody that that was not the case.
My last comment, if I may, and for the solicitor, working through that process, we have had lots of conversation, and I think it's fair for both the board and the community to hear that at this given point, it would be your legal opinion that simply just writing an exemption itself without doctor's notice and working through an official 504 type plan would not be able to be accepted. Is that?
That's correct.
Okay.
And there are a series of forms, of documents that we are seeing in this district and in many others that are open and available and being circulated on the internet. And unfortunately, I think for a lot of parents, it's attached with it's aspirational in the sense that that parents want it to be really easy. And I think the district is certainly committed to making it as easy as we can make it. But that being said, it's an individualized inquiry for every student involved, and therefore a checklist and a sign-off, an affidavit, on a form letter with a political statement it's just not sufficient for what we need to get you through that process. It really is designed to kind of work with our existing policies and our protocols. And again, we have a great team that is ready to do it and to do that triage. I see our director of special education here, and she certainly has been working through these with a lot of speed and care. But those form documents without anything more is not going to be sufficient. And we've been communicating that and inviting more information is what is kind of how we've been approaching those.
The last part is I know our principals are working diligently. I know it's acceptable, as Mr. King would agree, I think, too, from our reading, that you could wear a face shield if that was something that would be something that you would consider to be in compliance. Again, not with our mandate or the board mandate, but the mandate handed down to us. That being said, we've tried to work with folks. If they're unwilling to do that, we keep trying to talk about different ways to do that and try to isolate. But eventually, just to be fair and in a public forum, I think we have to mention, and you could discuss this as well, if it comes to the point where, no matter what we've tried, we can't come to a solution on that, we are obligated, from your opinion, by this mandate then to tell the child or the student, here are all the options, and if none of those work, you'd have to go home.
Yeah, we're going to work through those things the way that we work through other disciplinary matters. It's just this particular one, it's going to keep on presenting itself in a daily way if it's unresolved, and if there is no flexibility or on the part of the student or the family. And so when we have repeated infractions of our code of conduct, and we do get to those points. Now, our sincere hope is that those other lesser interventions are successful, and that we just have these open dialogues with families, acknowledge their needs, see if there is a way within our classrooms and our frameworks to make it happen. But we also, at the same time, it becomes a policy violation. Now, it's something that the board, if you wanted to get to a point sooner than later to actually adopt a formal policy, that's something that the board can consider. That certainly would provide some further direction to the administration as you work through these things. Otherwise, the board, your administrators right now are we're in day 2 right now. We're at the conclusion of day 2. So tomorrow is day 3, and if to the extent that we have repeated violations, there at this point will have been multiple communications back to the family, to the student. But you very well could get to a point, because we have an outlet where we are either we're excluding students in some way if we can't reach a resolution. Now, we're always sensitive to the special education components of that and FAPE and our obligations to students that way. So it's not a one-size-fits-all, but the ideal is that we come together as a community to kind of meet the challenges of the day. The challenges of the day are masking, unless there is appropriate exemptions. But if we can't, then the board needs to be aware that there will be progression and could ultimately be short-term exclusions from school as a result.
And just to be clear, it's my personal goal that we do everything that we can to work together to figure out a solution. And I think that's our administration's goal as well. So by any means, I'm not trying to make this difficult. Or obviously, the Board of Education prior to, just to reiterate, made this optional. And until this occurred, that's what we were doing here in Ambridge. So I'm not trying to be difficult, but I'm trying to be forward and upfront and transparent about that, because I think that hopefully we'll be able to work through it together and get those answers. In those couple cases, we'll be in contact then with you, unless the board obviously would have the ability to give us any feedback on what they'd be looking for us to do as well. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cascone. That's all you have.
I think that's it. Although, if the board has any questions or if you want to direct things my way, I'm happy to try.
Any questions from the board? No? Okay. Moving forward to public comment regarding agenda items only. At this time, district residents may come forward to comment on agenda items only. Each person must state their first and last name and address prior to speaking. Each resident will be allowed 3 minutes and can speak only once. This period for public comment prior to the standing committee reports will be limited to 1/2 hour. Although not required, board members desiring to address questions or concerns may do so after the residents' comments, questions, or at the conclusion of the committee reports. There will still be an opportunity for residents to comment on any business relevant to the Ambridge Area School District under old and new business at the end of the meeting.
Do you guys mind if I move the podium up here? Is that okay? Don't want to lose my feet. I'm just going to let you know that I'm Desiree from Ambridge, Desiree Conrad from Ambridge. I wanted to let you know that it's kind of tough hearing some of you guys out here. It's really hard to hear you. Just letting you know. It's difficult. Also, and I'm not saying this to be mean or rude, it's hard to wash your hands because none of the sinks in the bathroom work. So I don't know if anybody's able to look at that. I just had to go pee and saw that myself. Okay.
Before you get going, I don't believe right now that the topic that at least I see in the document here.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. The document here that you've given us relates to masking and some of the governor stuff. That's not an action item. Can I just ask that you pause and make this address to the board at the conclusion of the voting section? We have a second opportunity for public comment. The first one is reserved just for the action items that you see in the items 9 through 11.
So you want me to wait for my comment
Can you
on the
just wait for a
paper?
second?
Correct.
Yeah, we'll hear it.
Absolutely. I got all night. I'll wait.
All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
It's under the old and new business portion, Desiree.
They'll be under old and new business. I'll
So at the end.
I'll give you a
Got
highlight, okay?
Anybody else for comment on it regarding agenda items only? No.
I am Lisa Podolak, 43 years in Economy Borough, graduate at Bainbridge Area High School. I am going just to ask a question. All of our principals came up and they were talking about things in regards to field trips and all of that, and taking away certain things such as our open house and the things that the kids have looked forward to. Just full disclosure, I own a child care center, and I was open during the pandemic. I only had to shut down for 8 weeks. So I reopened May 18th, 2020, had to bring school agers into my building that is only 3,500 square feet to accommodate, to help teach them, because none of our 4 buildings were open. I am proud to say that I had 0 cases of COVID. 0. I don't know how I did it, but I left it up to my parents on what they wanted to do with their children. If they wanted to put a mask on their child, if they wanted to come into my building, if staff wanted to come into my building with a mask on, and I had 0 cases, okay? I follow DHS. I am hovered by them. They come into my building whenever they want to. So I know everything and actually talked to the Department of Health today and DHS. My question is that we are putting storage and gyms that they can't do storage and stuff. My question is, if it's the health and well-being of children, why did we remove a 5th grade teacher from Economy Elementary? That now my son has 28 kids in his class, with a new one coming in sometime this week, and 27 in the other. So now we have a free room for the 5th grade. So can't we do gym in there, or have STEAM, or do something in there, since we do have a free building, a free classroom?
I mean, I believe Mrs. Galitza spoke that we would have availability in the gym to at least even do half of the gym, correct?
Yeah, do something, because if we're we've condensed now, we got rid of a teacher, we've condensed.
I mean, I'm not in disagreement with you. The kids need socialization and physical activities.
100%. 100%.
And I think I think the majority of the board, agrees with that as well. That
So I just wanted to make sure, because if we're, condensing the classrooms and getting rid of teachers, then, why wasn't that teacher replaced instead of packing the classroom with 28 kids? If it's about social distancing and all of this, and now we're back to masks. So that's just my question, just to throw it out there. If we are thinking about hiring another teacher for 5th grade, I don't know. I haven't heard anything about that, and none of the parents have. So I was just throwing that out there. Okay, thank you.
Once again, we do need to keep the comments limited if it's an agenda item. If not, we'll address it at the end again towards old and new business. Any other comments for the agenda items only? Okay. Moving forward to legislative action for this meeting, education and technology, Dr. Manganello?
I don't have to do anything anymore. Just one.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. President. I move for the adoption of item 1 under education and technology.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Mrs. Curtis. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Angus?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Curtis?
Yes.
Mrs. Kehoe?
Yes.
Dr. Manganello?
Yes.
Mr. Metz?
Yes.
Ms. Young?
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Personnel, Mr. Angus.
Yes, this evening on the agenda, I have items 1 through 7 under personnel, and I move to accept those.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Metz. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Angus,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mrs. Curtis. Yes. Mrs. Kehoe,
Yes.
Dr. Manganello,
Yes.
Mr. Metz,
Yes.
Ms. Young,
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher,
Yes.
motion carries.
Salary, Schedule, and Labor Relations, Mrs. Curtis.
I have one item to vote on this evening.
Could
Oh, I'm sorry.
Pull your microphone a little closer.
Please.
I move for the adoption of item number 1 this evening.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I missed who that was. I apologize. Mr. Campbell, is that you?
No.
No, Mr. Metz.
Yeah.
All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Angus,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mrs. Curtis,
Yes.
Mrs. Kehoe,
Yes.
Dr. Manganello,
Yes.
Mr. Metz,
Yes.
Ms. Young,
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Superintendent's report. Dr. Pascarella?
Nothing further. I shared most of it in the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you. Solicitor's report?
Has no action items for this evening.
Thank you. Moving forward to old and new business, it is now time for old and new business. Any district resident who desires to comment on any business relevant to the Ambridge Area School District should now come forward. Each person must state their first and last name and address prior to speaking. Each person will be allowed 3 minutes and can speak only once.
Hi again. Desiree Conrad from Ambridge. All I have is some questions for you guys, that's all. And if you could answer them afterwards, after I'm done, or when we're all done, that would be great. I'm going to start off, I thought I would go in order, but I think I'm just going to skip around here, so I apologize for that. So my first question's a little long, so just bear with me. Do you like to be preferred, is your name pronounced Pascarilla or Pascarilli?
Pascarella.
Okay, just making sure, because I don't want to insult anyone. In Dr. Pascarilla's September 2nd email, he stated, this statewide order reflects the current statewide data. All 67 counties are reporting high or substantial rates of community transmission of COVID-19. And the fact that our young people represent the large remaining segment of our population that is unvaccinated and therefore unprotected from an infectious disease variant that is aggressively spreading. End quote. As of today, we checked personally with the PA Health Department, whose data and information you are citing, reports according to the latest census that Beaver County has a total population of 170,539 people, of which 19.2% are under the age of 18. That is roughly 32,000 children. Of that 32,000 children, only 146 were confirmed to be COVID-19 positive between August 16th and September 1st. This is a combined number total for both variants. This is out of the whole county and for COVID-19 and its variant, the Delta variant. Also confirmed by the health department, PCR tests cannot distinguish between the different variants the patient has tested positive for. Genome testing must be performed and is an expensive procedure to perform. Considering all of this information, does the district still feel it is imperative to comply with such an order, knowing the PA Health Department has no jurisdiction over the school districts? Moving on. Who specifically, either teachers union, PA Health Department, government agency, firm, board, whatever, whose interpretation of the health department's order is Ambridge School District using to determine what is considered compliant? Next question. Who does Ambridge School District acknowledge as having ultimate power in decision-making concerning children enrolled as students of the district? Can the solicitor provide us with their interpretation of the word would as it is used in Section 3, Part B of the Health Department's mandate? Also, where in the Health Department's mandate does it state that a written exemption letter from a doctor must be provided for a child to be exempt from the recommendation? Okay. Another question that I had, why are the parents not allowed to use religious and personal exemptions for the Health Department's mask order to remain compliant with Title I funding, and only medical exemptions being accepted under the 504? The email provided a link, but that link said that the page doesn't exist. And the reason I bring this up is because you're basically asking parents to acknowledge that their child is disabled in order to receive an exemption. And why that's a problem is because, I don't know if you're familiar with House Bill number 854. I have it here if you want to read it. My understanding of it is that through the agencies, they're going to hold on to documentation submitted for 10 years. So what stops an insurance company from, I don't know who's all exchanging this information. What's stopping your child graduating someday, going for a health, going for get a new job, they get insurance? What's stopping if it's in the system? I don't know who's going to have this, the insurance company, from saying you have a pre-existing condition. Is that going to become a problem in the future for my kids? So I just need that clarified. Also, what is the Ambridge? You know what? I'm gonna pass on that because you kind of touched on that. But
Desiree, we're at 5 minutes.
We're at 5. How many minutes do I get?
3.
3?
Yes. So we're gonna let the solicitor. She addressed on quite a bit of this in here, but we'll let her.
I didn't hear it.
We'll let her. Oh yeah, she addressed quite a bit of the legality part of it.
And I'll be here afterwards if anybody would like to speak to me, because I didn't get to all my questions. So I'll be here.
We
Thank you.
actually have to return to session after the meeting. Go.
So my recommendation. There's two parts to this. One, I understand that there are many people in the community who want the law to be something other than what it is, or they have a different interpretation of the law. I will tell you that the legal opinion that I have offered is a thoughtful one that is consistent with my colleagues and with the vast majority of my peers around the state. It is my recommendation, and it is my legal opinion, that the August 31st, 2021 order, not recommendation, order from the Department of Health is a legally binding order on this district. It is mine. It is mine. It is my opinion. It is my legal opinion, and the action, to the extent that they are shared by this board, I don't know, but it is my legal opinion, and I do believe that finding that way has all sorts of support in the law. And here's the thing: if I was really, really wrong, and I'm not saying that I'm infallible or that is not a possibility, but I would say that I would have otherwise expected that lots of courts would have been telling me already how wrong that I am. Okay? And that hasn't happened yet. So and that's why I say we keep on looking at this and keep trying to develop those understandings, both under the Commonwealth law. We look to other states as well, just not that it's binding on us, but the same legal analysis. If there was a similar order in another state, barring anything crazy, this is something that our country is grappling with. This is something that our Commonwealth is grappling with. So the path right now that I see and that I recommend, I don't vote on anything. I recommend and clients decide. But it is my strong recommendation. It's consistent with our insurance carrier, who has advised that if we do not follow mandates, it's an exclusion on our insurance policy. And that's a place where I never want to see a client be, and where I never want to see you as residents in. I don't want to see you in that, because just as I heard from your comments today that you read this and you have deep frustrations from a personal choice perspective, perhaps from religious perspectives, from other perspectives. There have been lawsuits in this region already. 2 of them have been brought by entities or families trying to enforce masking in those school districts. So this is neutral in the sense that we are looking at the law. We understand that there are people with strong feelings on both sides. And I do believe that this is where we find ourselves in this moment, and that could change at any second if either the state legislature, a court, the Department of Health, one of these other entities who have jurisdiction over a school district, and the Department of Health does have some, to the extent that an issue relates to health and safety consistent with the law over a school district. They are an entity under the Commonwealth that can have authority over us, and certainly had authority over us last year. It was both the emergency powers, but it was just as much the Department of Health's orders last year, and the Department of Education as well, that had orders that had us kind of in masking, social distancing, and all of those other things. My suggestion, because both of time, and I want to give each of these things the time and the thoughtfulness that's really required of it. If the board wants to direct me to respond to these questions in writing, and if you want to make that available, I'm happy to do that. Or if you want to select ones that you think are of general interest to the committee, I can do that. I don't think that I can, on the fly, kind of give an answer to every single one of these. But I do think that I'm trying to let you know exactly where I'm coming from and why. And if there's anything else that the board specifically wants me to ask to answer right now, please let me know, and I'll do so.
I think that's fair. I think that if she answers these in writing, I feel like that's fair. I mean, obviously away from here, because reading them in 2 minutes, it doesn't give you the opportunity to answer them fairly. But I think that there's a lot of good questions, a lot of things, obviously that people are passionate about. But I think she deserves some answers. If she doesn't like the answers, that's a different story, but she at least deserves, some answers for sure.
I didn't hear what you said.
She said she'll take the answers in writing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anybody have an issue with that, or would you like that to address it at next week's meeting?
Really, if you could just touch on, I'll take all of the rest of the questions, the answers in writing, and I'll give you my email address that you can send it to me, and I would also take it mailed to me, or I can pick it up in person. If you could just touch on what your interpretation of the word "would" in
So I don't have the statute. I don't have the statute.
I have it here if you want it.
I think we're being unfair in putting her on the spot to give an informative answer. She needs to read it and give something back to you.
If she needs to, if it's too busy right now, I have the bill right. I have the mandate right here.
My issue is, and I'm being on. We need to return to take care of issues.
Okay, like I said, if you want to take care of it, that's fine. I have all night.
What's your line of,
Are we at the?
I'm sorry, I can't.
Are we at the half-hour time limit?
You're very informed, that's why I just didn't know.
I'm a mom.
Well, I mean, that's full-time not dropping off. I
Yeah.
didn't know if you were something else. I thought it
Oh, heavens no.
was-
Just
So,
a child of Jesus
Desiree,
Christ.
we're not trying to cut you off. We are at the.
No, I understand. And
At
what
all.
else- I
We
know-
are at the half-hour time limit, and we do need to return, and that's not a disrespect to you to say we're trying to avoid your questions.
And
so that's not.
I will do my best to respond as quickly as possible.
yeah.
And I'm happy. I mean, I certainly can make this a private communication, but I mean, I'll provide this to the district and the board as well, to the extent that you want to put it on the website or do anything with it. I mean, that will be your work product to decide how you want to disseminate.
It would just help us understand a whole lot. Yeah. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I understand we're at the 30-minute mark. Can I have my 3 minutes to speak? Thank you.
Could you just move a little closer to the microphone,
Absolutely.
please?
The name is Kristen Paxton, and I am a resident of Economy, 144 Hickory Drive. I will shorten my comments just in the interest of time. I want to encourage everyone in the board and also in attendance to check out an extensive study that was just released. It is a reputable German university. They studied 25,000 school-aged children who wore masks for 4.5 hours a day during the last school year. Almost 3 out of 4 of them suffered physical and psychological damage. The vast majority of those children had no prior health issues. This is decimating their natural immunity. Regardless of what you feel about the pandemic, the numbers, because I concur with the speaker who was up here earlier, I don't believe that the numbers are as drastic as they're being portrayed. But instead of these masks providing security, as is being claimed, it's doing the opposite. As I said, I will try to condense this. I have many more things I want to say, but I will jump ahead. My husband and I are relatively intelligent people, and we are very responsible parents. Every single day, we make decisions that are in the best interest of our kids. And I think that we are in the best position to make decisions when it comes to our children's health. No government, whether it's state or local or federal for that fact, should have the authority to make these decisions for us. It's masking now. I imagine mandated vaccines are going to be next. For other parents who feel differently, I respect their opinion, and I simply ask the same in return. It should be a personal choice for every parent to make. The problem is the choice is what's being taken away. Thank you for your time.
Ms. Fisher, one comment I did want to make, just in regards to that. In the quotations there, many of the quotations that you'll see, the writing and quotations in that email, was from the email and the document that I received from the state. And that's why I left them in quotations, just so that the public knows that. Okay, I'm answering the question. I'm telling you a majority of that letter, including what you're quoting me, I took from the letter that I got, that the state said. So I'm just clarifying that point. And yes.
I'm sorry, can I, excuse me, Ms. President. Excuse me, for the other parent that was just up here, can I get the name of the study you were just talking about, please?
Yes, it is Vinton University, V-U-I-T-T-O-N.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Justin Buchanan, Sunset Hills, 220 Sunridge Drive. Just a follow-up question to Pascarella's comments earlier, Dr. Pascarella's comments, about the new CDC guidelines. Now that the children are wearing masks in the classroom, are we still going to continue to quarantine them I mean, it's really getting out of control. My kids don't even want to go to school because they're afraid of being quarantined. And these kids have spent a year and a half at home being homeschooled, and they're done. They want to be in class with their friends. Now, with the sports seasons taking place, a lot of kids are being quarantined at no fault of their own just because they sat next to somebody who was careless outside of school. Is that going to end now that everyone's wearing masks? And can we please put an end to the constant phone calls about COVID cases? Because there's not a damn thing anyone can do about it. It's more of a scare tactic than anything that I feel. That's all.
So my response to that, twofold. One, I'm always going to be, well, I'll start with your first question. And this is what I said, and I'll repeat it again. The way that I'm reading it and understanding it now is that if all parties have masks on, they would not have to quarantine. Okay. There will be spaces like lunch, phys ed, sports, where they would not have masks on, and they could be a close contact and have to quarantine. That's the way I understand it right now. Furthermore, though, these things change that are outside of our control.
I understand.
And sometimes even the health department, at times, has changed what they thought was appropriate, as we know. As I used as one example, there was a time when folks that chose to get vaccinated didn't think they would have to wear a mask. That's since changed. So my point is, I'm answering the question today to the best of my knowledge. I could go back and get an email or a call from the health department, and that could change.
Yeah.
So it should limit the quarantines other than lunch, sports, and physical education activities where the masks are off. It should limit them. But I can't say it'll be that way forever, but that is the goal. As far as the calls go, my intention will, unless voted publicly by the Board of Education, I'll continue to send those letters out. My reason for doing that is to make sure I'm transparent and informing people who do want that information. I mean, for some, they do not want them, and for some, they absolutely do want them. And I think it's important that we let them know that, with the idea that they also know that this case is a positive, but if your child was somebody who would need to be contact traced and exposed, underneath the current guidelines, whatever those may be, underneath the guidance of either Rapid Response or the health department, we will follow that and let you know.
So will the school district no longer disrupt classes then to spray rooms and move kids around throughout the day?
No, I'm not saying that. If there's symptoms, if a kid had symptoms and we had to move the room, we would spray the room.
Thank you.
My name is Stacy Chalupiak. I reside at 300 Tyro Road in Baden. I'm not going to speak about facts. I'm going to speak about emotion because that's the only way I feel about all this right now. And I think that what's going on with our kids is a crime. I think it's a sin. And don't you think me, as a mother, if my kids were sick or if I thought they were in danger, you don't think I would move heaven and earth to keep them safe? You do not think that I have the right to make the decision for my kids? You guys are all cowards. You're bowing down to the teachers' unions. You're bowing down to the state, which it's not even a law. It's a mandate. The kids aren't even in danger here. My kids, my two boys are at the high school. And you know what? I'm sending them to school with no masks. It's their God-given right to be able to breathe, just as it is yours. You don't think everybody was in line at Kennywood and everybody was just in line at Punk's the other couple weeks ago? What's the difference now? There is no difference. And everybody on this board, I know some of you are going out. You know why you're going out? Because we voted you out. And you know, I'm speaking to everybody else who will be on this board. We are holding your feet to the fire. I'm done with this. It's not just me. I'm speaking up because I have a voice. I know there's a lot of people that feel like me, but they're afraid. Just like you're afraid. I'm done with this. I will be sending my kids to school with no masks. And that's fine. Because that's what I'm going to do, because I'm the parent. Not you, not the state, not the government. Thank you.
I might have to move this down, and I don't know how to do that. Okay. Hi, I'm Rachel Nish. I reside at 223 State in Baden. I'm going to state facts because I feel like that's my way of doing things. And I feel like I'm a relatively intelligent person, like the other mother said. I am a Ambridge alumnus. I am a local business owner. I find myself that I'm relatively intelligent, and I listen to the kids. And so I listen to my daughter. She's a 4-year-old, and she says, "Mommy, I can't breathe with this mask on." Like, I'm so sorry that I'm getting emotional, but like, she can't breathe. And this is a fact because there's studies. So with a mask, the concentration of carbon dioxide exposure is increased 3 to 4 times. There's studies, and I have cited them. I sent you guys all this information in a previous email, that the carbon dioxide concentrations are higher, and they cause symptoms such as fatigue, headache, and loss of concentration. And this is for 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. I just find it totally insane. And I'm upset. And nobody thinks about this. Like, nobody considers it. We just all find it normal. And the kids just need to do what the kids need to do. Based on this item alone, face masks should not be required upon children. It violates the Pennsylvania Constitution, which notes under Article 1, Section 27, that the people have a right to clean air and pure water. And under the definition of child abuse, as listed under the Pennsylvania Child Protective Services Law number 8, interfering with breathing of a child is defined as child abuse. And in regards to the interpretation of the mandate, there are 43 plus other districts that have interpreted it differently. They all have school boards, they have legal counsel, and they are permitting exemptions without a medical excuse, without a doctor's note. That's Bald Eagle, Bedford, Belafonte, Butler, Chestnut Ridge, Clarion Limestone, Central Bucks, Conemaugh Township, Connellsville, Coudersport, Council Rock, Dunmore, East Stroudsburg, Elwood, Franklin, Gettysburg, Hempfield, Hallsdayburg, Kane, Laurel, Lake Lehman, Lakeview, Littleton, Manheim, Mohawk, Northern Bedford School District, Northern York, Penn Cambria, Penn Ridge, Pocono Mountain, Port Allegheny, Red Lion, Rockwood, Selinsgrove, Slippery Rock, Tuscarora, Somerset, Union, Uniontown, Waynesboro, York, Suburban. I urge you guys to join in. Be one of those schools. Be proactive, not reactive. They're not taking it. They're not laying down. This mandate is not a law. Thank you.
Adriana Cephas, Ambridge, PA. I feel like I'm going to be a villain here, but I have a relative who just died of COVID. I take this extremely serious. My kids are in elementary school and they wear their mask. I train them to wear their mask. I tell them if you need a break, go to the bathroom and take your mask off and breathe. If you guys do decide to change it, I'm going to still send my child with their mask, or maybe make it optional, or maybe make the kids who don't wear a mask are in this classroom, the kids who do in that classroom. But my child will have a mask. And if they don't, tell my child to put their mask back on. We take it extremely serious in our household. It hit hard for us. And also, if I can back up to the open house, I'm not really sure what you guys landed on, but I would like it if it could be open, especially Highland. We have a low turnout. If any parents or grandparents want to come and be involved, I say let them come. We need all the parent community support that we can get to get these babies back into a rhythm of school and love the activities that are going on. So I ask that you do consider allowing it to be open, or maybe first, second, 1 hour, and then the second hour, third, fourth, like something to where it's okay if we have a large group of people and mask up. I will be there with my mask with my children. Thank you.
I need to cut it off. I apologize. We'll be moving to the meet and discuss, and there'll be other opportunity there, correct? Or will? No?
It'll be real quick, promise. Hello, my name is Casey Prokop, and I reside on Gemini Drive in Economy Borough. I am here this evening to do two things. First, I want to recognize you on the board for the difficult choices you've been forced to make this year. And second, I'd like to speak on behalf of our children who cannot represent themselves against mask mandates. The primary responsibility for a child's health and welfare lies with their parents or legal guardians. Our children do not belong to any government, community, health, or school board. I urge this district to stop the policy of any and all mandated masking, and instead allow parents and legal guardians to make the choice to continue or discontinue the use of masking. Students who wish to wear face masks as a mitigation measure should be permitted to do so, but that should be their personal choice without discrimination or special treatment. Social and emotional harm is befalling kids who have been masked since the spring of 2020. Experts point to difficulties in recognizing others and processing interpersonal communications while masked, creating a threatening and unsafe environment for our children. It is well documented that social health directly impacts mental and physical health. While some parents may want their children to wear a mask, forcing all children to do so undermines parents' legal authority and infringes on parental rights. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And there will be opportunity, that's all for today. Obviously, there'll be opportunity on the meet and discuss to speak about the agenda items, but yes. And again, next week we will be here. We hear your concerns and appreciate your feedback. Thank you. I have a motion to recess the voting meeting until later this evening following conclusion of disciplinary hearings.
Second.
I need a so move.
So move.
Thank you. And a second from Ms. Young. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, well, we'll reconvene the meet and discuss. The Meet and Discuss Board meeting of the Ambridge Area School District is held on Wednesday, September 8th, 2021. This meeting is being held to review the agenda for the regular monthly board meeting that will be held on Wednesday, September 15th, 2021 at 7 p.m. in the high school auditorium. This meeting is being recorded for district purposes. It is or may be published in part or in its entirety on the district's website without the express permission of meeting participants. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Angus?
Here.
Mr. Campbell?
Here.
Mrs. Curtis? Here. Mrs. Kehoe? Here. Dr. Manganello?
Here.
Mr. Metz?
Here.
Ms. Pedigo? Ms. Young?
Here.
Mrs. Fisher?
Here.
8 present.
Do we have any correspondence this evening, Mrs. Miller?
No correspondence.
Thank you. We do not have any student-teacher recognition or presentations. Moving forward to public comment regarding agenda items only. At this time, district residents may come forward to comment on agenda items only. Each person must state their first and last name and address prior to speaking. Each resident will be allowed 3 minutes and can speak only once. This period for public comment prior to the standing committee reports will be limited to 1/2 hour. Although not required, board members desiring to address questions or concerns may do so after the residents' comments, questions, or at the conclusion of the committee reports.
And again, these are agenda items that the public comments need to relate to.
Okay. Moving forward to the committee reports, education and technology. Dr. Manganello?
Thank you, Mrs. President. I have the following item for discussion with the number one, the SMILE program, and moving that to be offered to all elementary buildings. Any questions?
Okay. Dr. Manganello, would you be so kind to take finance and budget since Ms. Pedigo is not in attendance this evening?
Yes, I have the following items 1 through 6 for discussion tonight. Number 1, 2 are our normal monthly bills and salaries. Number 3 is to approve the contract and service through PA Educator. Number 4, it's recommended to accept the 2021-2022 Pre-K Counts Expansion Grant in the total of $175,000 from the Office of Child Development and Early Learning. The funds will be used to expand the number of slots to serve eligible children and pre-K program at Economy Elementary. And Mrs. Hoover was instrumental. So thank you, Mrs. Hoover.
Thank you, Mrs. Hoover.
And then 5 and 6 are tax exonerations. Any questions on that? Thank you.
Thank you. Building and grounds, Mr. Angus.
Yes, this evening there are 3 items for consideration. The first one is the renewal of the agreement with Western PA Natural Gas Consortium to save us approximately 18% on our gas bills. The second one would be the renewal of the agreement for 1 year with Trane for service on our HVAC systems. And the last would be the renewal of the 3-year maintenance agreement with the elevator company for the service of the elevators within the district. Anybody have any questions or comments?
Okay, thank you. Athletics, Mr. Campbell.
Nothing to report at this time.
Thank you. Public relations, Mr. Metz.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Steering and rules, Mrs. Kehoe.
Item number 1, policy 006, local board procedures. It is the first reading to update the current policy to assist with compliance with Sunshine Act amendments, Act 65 of 2021, which requires public notice of board business by posting agendas of open board meetings with the intent to facilitate transparency. Any discussion? Item number 2 is policy 903, public participation in board meetings. First reading is to update the current policy, and it is to assist with the compliance with the Sunshine Act amendments, Act 65 of 202, which requires public notice of board business by posting agendas of open board meetings with the intent to facilitate transparency. Is there any discussion? That is all I have, Madam President.
Thank you. Legislative, Ms. Young.
Nothing to discuss at this time.
Thank you. I have a motion on the floor to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Thank you, Mrs. Manganello. Second, Mrs. Curtis. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?